We are back where it all began. Level 34, but it all began in Anon. And we're here because something very special just happened. First, someone ran by a necro, female necro, gnome, and gave me Dead Man Floating. It was actually her, Bug. But the special thing that happened is, check this out. For the first time ever on this character, I was able to afford all of my level 34 spells. Previously, I would buy some of the spells, couldn't afford all of them, so I had to kind of pick and choose which ones were the most meaningful, and then I would just kind of forget to come back and buy them. This round, I went back and bought some of the 24 and 29 spells that I had missed, so that's good. But there's one spell that I cannot get in Anon, even with all the money in the world. I cannot even get it on Antonica, unless another player was selling it. It is this spell, Armor of Protection, a cleric-only hit point and AC buff. I really want that. However, it is only sold on the continent of Velious, and I'm going to make a very concerted effort today to say Velious and not Velious, because I know people don't like it when I say that. I did have one person comment and say, it's pronounced Velious, and I was like, okay, I might be in the minority calling it Velious, but no one's calling it Velious. Maybe I should call it Velious. No, I'm going to call it Velious, because today that's where we're going. We're going to the continent of Velious so that I can buy... Man, there's a lot of people in Anon today. So that I can buy my spell. Who's this? Nirvana? So that I can buy my spell, and maybe we'll do a little exping there. You know, on level 34, it's a 30-plus expansion, or so it says on the outside of the box. What? Who is this? Man, this is a really popular place. Alright, well, Velious is going to be even more popular, so let's head on over to the northern desert of Row. I have what I think should be enough money to buy it. It's sold by 2 merchants in Velious, so let's go to North Row. We're going to go to Velious the old-fashioned way, riding the boat. Alright, so here we are in North Row at the docks. Whew, I actually ran the whole way here. So my cheap ass was too cheap to get a port, which meant I had to take the boat. It was fine. I bound 2 people in Freeport that I was on the boat with. It was nice. It was very fun. So, I just got here. And first of all, this dock was not here originally. Now, I hailed this gnome here who cons amiable to me. He says, "Hey there, Janes. You look like a gnome in search of opportunity. If I'm right, and I know I am, then where better than a land of ice, rocks, and ice? Oh, with giants and dragons from sea to shining sea. That piqued your interest, eh?" And I tried to talk to him. I said yes. He didn't do anything. I mean, he looks at you when you say yes, but he doesn't actually... Okay. And now he just said, hurry, hurry, hurry. Come one, come all. That's right. Step on up if you're brave enough. No apostrophe in your. Interesting. To brave the icy lands of opportunity. All right, so I want to do something here. I guess the little boat's about to come. I actually don't remember what it looks like. I have not done this in a long time. Okay, so I want to talk about something relating to how this expansion launched. So, let's go back to 2000. Now, for me, this was my first real expansion because I started playing the game in early July of 2000, meaning Kunark was already out. So to me, from my perspective, Kunark was just kind of part of the game. I knew it was an expansion, and it was a continent that felt very different from the rest of the game. But it was already there. So it didn't feel like, hey, this big expansion is launching. It was already launched like 3 months before I started playing the game. So, fast forward to early December 2000, and this expansion is about to launch, and my character was barely level 30, okay? I had a Dark Elf Warrior who was barely level 30. I wonder where this thing... I guess it wasn't as immediate as he made it seem. And the expansion was well known as being 30 plus, right? I mentioned that earlier. So I was like, I'm level 30, I barely meet the threshold, I'm going. Now, in those days, you didn't just download the expansion, buy a little key code, plug in the key code, and boom, you're ready to go. No, I had to actually go out to freaking Best Buy or something. I think it was like a Best Buy or a Micro Center, an actual store. We had something by me called EB Games as well. It was one of those. And I had to actually buy this box, and it was a great looking box. Like, the artwork was fantastic. And bring it home, and inside the box there was a CD I had to put that CD into my crappy computer. I mean, my computer from the time I started playing this game sucked. I remember I actually used my mom's work computer to play this game, and I was like 13 at the time when I started playing, 13 going on 14. I was 14 when Velious came out, and I had to sit there and wait for this thing to install. My computer was so crappy. You know, I'm using a little CRT monitor. My computer didn't even have a video card. It was just running off the processor. Everything loading took forever. It was a very slow process. So was installing this CD. So, I'm sitting there waiting for the CD to install. I'm so excited, ready to go to this brand new expansion, brand new continent. And inside the box was this fantastic little guide. It was like a manual, but it had some lore. It was probably put together by the marketing department of Variant Interactive. So, I'm reading this thing while the game is physically installing on my hard drive. It has this awesome little tidbit of lore that kind of sets the scene. So, I want to read some excerpts from that. I'm not going to read the whole thing because some of it is redundant with what I've already talked about on this channel. Oh, there it is. What is that? Oh, I can't click it. Oh, I can. Pirate Runner's Skiff. Can't consider it. Okay, interesting. That looks exactly like the one that comes to the over there. Or the Oasis. Okay, great. I will get myself nice and ready here. So, I'm reading through this thing, and it basically sets the scene this way. Here's how you get to Velious. So, everyone on Norath always knew that Velious existed. They knew where it was, they knew that it had dragons on it, but they knew that they couldn't get to it. It wasn't like, oh, we just discovered this place that no one knew about. It was like, no, we knew it was there, we just didn't know how to get there. The reason being, there's so much ice that surrounds the continent that none of the Norathian boats could get there. At least, at the time. Now, what ended up happening and why these gnomes play such a big role in this whole expansion is because the gnomes are the tinkerers, right? Like, even me as a gnome, I think I have tinkering as a... Yeah, there it is, tinkering 50. I think that's just stock once you hit a certain level. But when the expansion came out was when the gnomes figured out a way to get to Velious. Oh, there, he even said something here. Thar she be mates, all aboard, that's going aboard. Interesting. I kind of wonder if, because this thing looks so much like the one in Oasis that goes to Kunark, and it's right next to, we're in North Row, we're right next to Oasis, I wonder if you could, lore-wise, accidentally get on the wrong one and end up in Timorous Deep instead of Iceclad Ocean. So, the Iceclad Ocean was thought to be too dangerous, no ships could get through, so even though we know Velious is there, we can't get there. Well, the gnomes figured out a way to create this, I don't know how to describe it. It's almost like a steamboat with hammers on it, and I guess we'll see it in a minute, but it kind of looks like a windmill where the hammers just like rotate, they go up and they crash down, and there's several of them. And that, this is the lore story. Oh no, Dead Man Floating is fading. That is what broke through the ice. So the gnomes figured out a way to get to Velious. Good for them. Now, in between... So first the gnomes get to Velious, right? They're the first Norathians to get there, not counting, you know, the dwarves from long ago. So first the gnomes get there, and they set up shop on... Ooh, that's loud. Let me lower that. The gnomes set up shop on the very first island they encounter in Iceclad Ocean. And they don't really go any further than that. Now, you could argue once you get to Western Waste, yes, there are some gnome remnants there showing that maybe they actually got there before they got to Iceclad Ocean. Doesn't matter. The gnomes get there, they set up a little camp, they don't really go any further than that. Then, this group of adventurers arrives. And that group of adventurers is like the first ones to explore. They were charted with exploring this uncharted territory of Velious. Kind of like Lewis and Clark in real life, if you ever learned about them. What's interesting is those adventurers left letters that were sent back to Antonica, back to, you know, the three main islands of Norath. And they were intercepted by Neriak. Now, what I don't know lore-wise is, did Neriak make copies of them and then allow the originals to go back to where they were intended to go? Or did Neriak just steal them and we were never heard from the original group that went to Velious? I don't know, but here's what the letter says from Velious. Okay, from Neriak about Velious. So first it says, Velious opportunities, your eyes only. Ooh, look at that, it's classified. Neriak Ministry of Information. By the way, this zone is massive, and it's different from the other ocean zones in the game. But, ooh, there's an island. Okay, my lord, in keeping with your request to find out more, remember, this is from one dark elf to another in Neriak. To find out more about Velious and the recent journeys being made there, I dispatched our spies to gather what information they could.
We have had some success, and enclosed are transcripts of letters sent by a recent group of travelers to Velious. While fragmentary, great word. While fragmentary and possibly filled with exaggerations, that's a good point there, they do shed more light upon this mysterious land. Our spies are to be commended on the excellent performance of their tasks, as getting copies of these letters was by no means easy. Okay, so basically what the... Oh, who's that? I'm trying to click on Joshua the Large. That's funny. He's a gnome like me. He's not very large. So, what the Neriak people are saying is, we didn't go to Velious, but we intercepted the letters from the people that did. And we think there could be some opportunities there. Alright, I guess I'll get off here. I'm floating, not because I have Deadman floating, because I don't. Let's see what Joshua the Large has to say. That's right, large, because that's what I be. If and you don't like it, or even if you do, you best get to the dock on the other side of this island. You never know when Icebreaker is going to stop by again, and ye not wanting to miss it. Alright, well, I kind of wanted to explore this little island. Ooh, there's a tree. Oh no, it's just some brush. I mean, are there people in these? This kind of looks like Rude's Crossing. Actually, it kind of looks like the barbarian huts. There's no one in this one. Well, I better hurry, because like you said, I don't want to miss the boat. That little boat that I just rode is not the one that actually takes you to Velious. I'm doing a good job saying Velious. By the way, if my voice sounds off, I'm getting over being sick. I actually wanted to record this a couple days ago. Oh, the boat's not here. But I was too sick to even talk, so... If my voice sounds off, that's what it is. Alright, I guess I could explore this island a little bit. But this actually looks like the dock in... when you get to... well, the islands in Iceclad. We're technically in Iceclad Ocean. So all these people here, they're probably over by, like, the actual place where we're headed. Man, I don't know how long this boat ride's going to be, because I have not done this in quite some time. I cannot remember if you can actually port to Iceclad Ocean, or if you need a tooth. I feel like you can probably port there, because I don't remember using the tooth. Well, I remember porting straight to Iceclad when the expansion launched on the blue server in 2015. I was in a raid guild at that time. Whew, that was something. I'll do a whole video on that at some point. Anyway, I guess I'll hang out on this island while I wait. So, first this group of adventurers goes and they send back their letters, which were intercepted by Neriak. Then the player base is allowed to go. And that's kind of a key distinction, because you end up finding some items from that original group. I think this island's just empty, other than that Joshua guy. You end up finding some key items belonging to the group of people that wrote the letters. There's 3 letters. One is from a guy in, I think, Freeport. One is from a barbarian in Hallis, and one is from a, I don't know the race, I'm going to guess half-elf, in Quinos. Alright, I don't think there's anything on this island, so I'm just going to wait at this dock. Okay, I'm going to read part of this first letter because I find it very interesting. And this is what I was reading while the expansion was installing on my 14-year-old self's computer, which was really my mom's work computer. And it was really prepping me. And I love that they did this because it helped prep you for the expansion. Letter transcript recovered from Freeport. Mentor, I hope this reaches you before too much time has passed. In my last letter, I told you about securing... We don't have that last letter, by the way. I told you about securing passage on the Gnome vessel Icebreaker. That's what we're about to ride. Which had recently begun making voyages from the northern desert of Ro to the frozen continent of Velious. Little did I know what was in store for me. The Icebreaker is not your typical vessel. Built like all things gnomish, it is more about function than form or comfort. I will not bore you with the details of my wretched journey across the Iceclad Ocean. I will also refrain from commenting on the nature of the gnomes who crewed the vessel. Gnomish pirates indeed. Having already made several voyages from Antonica, the gnomes established a beach camp and constructed a rudimentary dock. Beyond that, they lacked for almost any real creature comforts. They made a few short forays inland, but mostly they stuck close to the landing area, trading with a relatively peaceful tribe of gnolls that inhabited the area. We're going to meet those gnolls because one of them has a quest I want to do. Since my companions and I embarked on this journey for the sake of discovery and adventure, we immediately set forth to explore this frozen land. venturing west from the landing. We came across a tremendous bridge spanning a huge chasm in ice. Chasm, I guess. Nothing built by the fabled Combine Empire can compare to this massive construction. Ooh, there it is. Wow. Ooh, it's big. See, so those are what broke the ice. Again, this is lore-wise. You don't actually see any ice being broken. Alright, well, let's hop on this sucker. I'm ready. Take me to Velious. Or Velious. Alright. So this zone is like completely empty outside of the islands that we travel to. And I guess this right here. So there's really nothing to see on the way, but I'll keep a wide view just in case. And I am convinced that this is one of the largest zones in the game. If you look at the map of it, just the sheer size, they even reduce the size on the map to show you this little island as like a little inlet, and then the rest of it. But they leave out a bunch because it's just empty water. And I don't even think, like the other oceans, I don't think there's anything swimming in the water until you get close to the island. Then you have like Lodazol. Okay, so hopefully we're about to depart here. Now, this guy just mentioned... I'll tell you who wrote this letter in a minute, but this guy just mentioned the Combine Empire. That is really interesting, because we know that the Combine Empire went around the world, and even to Lucklin. We may not have known that they went to Velious until we get there and we find a spire, which we assume was built by the Combine Empire. But this guy's saying even the Combine Empire could not have built this bridge that they crossed. And notice this guy didn't say anything about the Tower of Frozen Shadow. So he basically jumps right from Iceclad to the bridge to Eastern Waste. Okay. He says, across the bridge and away from the ocean proper, we ran into our first trouble. Giants. And not the giants you may be familiar with. These giants were different. We all know the story about the wrath for making war upon the gods themselves. And we're off, finally. We all know the story about how the giants and other creations of Mrylokar were cursed by the wrath for making war upon the gods themselves. Goodbye, island. Probably never see you again. That curse does not seem to apply to these creatures, though how they managed to escape the divine wrath is still a mystery to me. In any event, they are much more intelligent and organized than their lesser brethren, while every bit as fierce. We lost 2 of our party to a small band of these creatures when we first set foot upon the eastern waste of Velious, right across that bridge, and those of us who survived were scattered. Finding myself alone, I was determined to continue my journey westward, moving most carefully and avoiding all that I learned in my many years of adventuring. I managed to avoid several more bands of giants, as well as war bands of orcs. So now we know that there's gnomes on Velious, we know that there are gnolls, we know that there are orcs, and we know that there are giants. He says, eventually I came inside of a large keep, obviously built for giants. Not wanting to venture into what I felt would be a dangerous place, I snuck off in the opposite direction. I think he's talking about Kale there. He's saying he discovered Kale, decided, no way am I going in there's too many giants, I'm going to go another way. After several days of travel, I left the realm with the giants and orcs, though to my puzzlement there seemed to be signs of some other inhabitants. Old campfires at first, then cleverly disguised structures built into hillsides, showing signs of recent habitation. Imagine my surprise when, while investigating one of these structures, I was confronted by a group of odd, pale dwarves. While wary around me, they were not hostile, and were able to converse with me in a colorful dialect of common. They called themselves the Coldane, and agreed to take me to their fortress city of Thurgadin. Words cannot describe this city built under an icy mountain, so I shall not attempt it. Suffice to say that these dwarves are every bit as industrious and hardy as their cousins in Kaladin. I was brought before their king, Dane Frostreaver IV. This mighty warrior welcomed me to his realm and proceeded to query me for information about the world beyond Velious. In the process, I learned much about Velious itself. The Coldane take a very serious view of their heritage, and from very early childhood, learn a great deal about their history. It is their firm belief that they were chosen by Brel to inhabit Velious. From there, he basically goes on to a very detailed history of the Coldane, which I don't want to get into because I basically covered that in my video all about the Coldane. I would say it's like a 90% recreation or my video is like a 90% recreation of his description. Yes, there were some details that I left out of the video, but for the most part, he basically says what I said in that video, so I'm going to leave that part out. He finishes by saying, the Coldane are determined not to lose this home. Thurgadin is built in a very defensive manner. At the heart of the city lies Icewell Keep, blah blah blah. Surrounding this castle are the forges and shops that make up the mainstay of Coldane commerce. I have used my meager cartography skills to fashion a map of Thurgadin, which I am sending you with this letter, which we don't have. I guess the Neriak Dark Elves stole it. Although, actually, no, there is one later in this guide. Okay, I take that back. There was one in here. I'll show that. I have decided to reside in Thurgadin for a time, to better get to know my hosts and to assist them in rejoining the community of beings of Antonica and Fedor. I feel very secure here in this mountain stronghold, and I think there is much to accomplish. Signed, as always, Solist Kinsland. Okay, that's huge right there, because we know that name. We know the name Solist. How do we know the name Solist? There's a ton of items named after him in the game. Solist's Ice Spear is a spell that wizards get at level 60, right? That's huge. That's like one of the most important spells in a wizard's arsenal. Ooh, we see ice. We see ice in the distance. We're about to see a bunch more. We've got a robe from Solist that drops in Vishan's Peak. We've got an earring from Solist that drops off of Vulak. Vulak Air, the boss of Velious. You could argue maybe it's Avatar of War, maybe it's the Sleeper. I guess you could make a really weak argument for Tunair. I wouldn't. His stuff is everywhere. It's even in Kern's Tower, Solist Icy Wand. So Solist is one of these, what I would call, heroes of the game. They're characters that you never interact with, ever, throughout the time that you play this game. You'll never see them, but you will see their items. And the fact that they left these items behind in all these interesting places, like Vishan's Peak and Temple of Vishan, tells you that they were really powerful and they went to all these places. Maybe they didn't necessarily go to all these places. I'll give you my theory on that in a minute. But next, I want to read the letter, and this one's really short, from Breen. What's his last name? Breen Everblood. Now, this is the Barbarian, so he's purposely going to sound a little dumb here, because that's the whole, roleplay thing in Barbarians. Miktarnagol. I took the gnome ship. The trip was bad. Ship was too cramped, not built for a Halisman. What is outside of Halis? Made it to Velious with a strong group of Southruns. I don't know what that means. Potentially all humans? Weather was fine. Looks like a nice place. Plenty to eat, plenty to fight. So he's saying weather is fine even though it's freezing cold on Velious because he's from Halis. Went inland, saw a strange tower. Steered clear of it, reeked of sick magic. Okay, that's our first reference to the Tower of Frozen Shadow. Remember, this is all designed to give you a preview of what you as the player are about to see once the damn expansion disc is done installing on your crappy computer. So he's saying there is a tower in Iceclad Ocean that reeked of magic. He wanted to steer clear of it. Now later on we're going to find out there's other characters that wanted to go in it, but they didn't. Okay. Found a large bridge. Would not want to defend it. Too big. Cross the bridge. Good country there. Looks like an excellent place to live. Again, Halis. Found Kromrif here too. Thought frost giants were all dead. They are not. How did he even know what frost giants are? That's what I don't understand. Party was ambushed by Kromrif warband. Some died and others ran. Now, when he says others ran, he's probably referring to Solist there, because remember, Solist is saying the group of them was ambushed. He went off in another direction. I fought. Clubbed till I went black. Woke up being carried into the giant fortress. Saw banners of Lord Ralos. Gave homage. Kromrif saw this. Nodded. Okay, that's another interesting lore tidbit. He's basically saying, and this is perhaps controversial in Halis as it is in every city with warriors, he does not follow the tribunal. He worships Ralosek, so he's probably a warrior. He's a barbarian warrior. He follows Ralosek. He saw a sign or a flag that had a symbol of Ralos, and he gave homage, which the Frost Giants, the Kromrif, appreciated. They felt like, this guy's one of our own. Now back in Halis, there might not be that same sense of appreciation because most barbarians are supposed to follow the tribunal. This is true of every race except for Ixars that can be warriors. They can all follow either Ralos or the other race that's popular. You want to be a dwarf? Well, maybe dwarves can either. I'm not sure about that. But let's just say you want to be a wood elf warrior. See, here's an example of the hammer crushing the ice, I guess. Ooh, we're already at the dock. Sweet. Okay, that was a shorter ride than I thought it would be. I'm talking too much. So, you want to be a wood elf warrior? You can follow Tunair, or you can follow Ralos, or you can be agnostic. Same with, I don't know. Just pick an example. Same with a dark elf. You can follow Neriak, or you can follow Ralos. Okay, so that's an option for all of them, and he's saying he chose to follow Ralos, and that might have saved his ass in Kale, because the giants didn't want to kill him. All right, I'm at the dock. I'll pause here for a minute while I finish reading this. Taken to true leaders of city. True leaders, the Kromzek. That is another fascinating lore component that is not explored nearly enough. The Kromrif are subservient to the Kromzek within Kale. They are the true leaders. They look different, and apparently there is a hierarchy within Kale. And once you actually get into Kale, especially if you have good giant faction, you'll see that they're segregated within the city. By the way, this is where the gnomes landed and set up shop. Okay. Storm Giants are still alive. Storm Giants is another term for Kromzek. Frost Giants is for Kromrif. The Kromzek are superior to the Kromrif. And still strong. Someone should hit Margan McCann over the head. Her lore is wrong. Okay, so this tells us that the... Hey, here's a barbarian. Wolfgar. This tells us that the barbarians, at least those that follow Ralos, maybe, still have some lore ties to the Giants of Velious. So they know a little bit about other Ralos creations, like the ones on Velious. But apparently they don't know much, because I guess this Margan McCann carried... I think that's actually one of the warrior guildmasters in Hallis. She said, yeah, they're all dead, or they're dumb because of the Curse of the Wrath. Curse of the Wrath. Okay. The King of Kromzek, Tormax, boom, asked me many questions. I said boom because he just referred to a NPC character that you will meet once you go to Velious. First time that's happened so far. And an important one. Found out Kromzek and Kromrif escaped the curse. Kromrif are warring with ice dwarves to the north. Our second reference to the Colding. Kromzek are trying to expand west, fighting a savage forest claimed by Tuner. Our first reference to the Awakening Lands and to, loosely, the Plane of Growth. They also fight dragons. Boom, there's our first reference to the dragons and the war between the races. Very bad blood between the Velious dragons and Kromzek. Notice he didn't say Kromzek and Kromrif, he just said Kromzek. Tormax sits on the bones of a dragon queen his sire killed. Another lore point that you'll see once you actually go there. Tomorrow I go out with a warband of Kromzek and Kromrif, heading west through the forest to a dragon shrine to do battle there. May Zek give me strength. I am giving this letter to a Kromrif who is going east to hand to the gnomes. Tell the warriors of Hallis that Ralosek is strong here. Many chances for battle and conquest. Bring your own beer. Signed, Breen Everblood. Wow, okay. There's a lot to unpack there. First of all, the idea that he could just give a letter to a Kromrif, and the Kromrif is going to come right here to one of these gnomes and say, hey, I'm not here to fight. I just want to let you know, here you go. Here's a little letter for you. Don't be scared. Just take this letter. It's like, the gnomes would probably run away and be like, oh my god, that giant's coming at us. Might as well heal this guy up a little bit. Yeah, give him a buff too. So, that's really interesting to me. The other interesting thing is that the giants were willing to take this guy on as one of their own and fight. However, this is a first-person letter, remember. He's basically saying it from his perspective. What this is actually previewing here, I believe, is probably the mercenaries that we see in the Awakening Lands and a little bit in Kale. You'll see these, I don't remember all the races, but there's barbarian mercenaries, there's ogre mercenaries, there's troll mercenaries. Maybe Breen is one of those barbarian mercenaries that you see in Awakening Land. So basically, he writes this letter saying, hey, I'm one of them now. The giants might not be looking at it that way. They might be looking at it as, here's another goofball from one of the other continents on this planet, and we're going to sucker him into doing our work for us. That might be how the giants look at him. But it's also interesting to note, of the 3 letters that were written and given to the players, this is the only one, Breen Everblood, that we don't have any information on. There's no items with his name. There's no previous reference to him. He's kind of a nobody. He might not be that important. Okay, I'm going to read the last one here. Bear with me, because this one's really interesting, and this one refers to 2 heroes that we are very familiar with because of the items that bear their names. Hans, when I get back to Quenos, I'm going to knock a few of your teeth out. I'm still not sure how you convinced me to make this trip, though I'm thinking Crow's special brew had something to do with it. Leaving the new dock in North Row, I took a launch that carried me out to the Iceclad Ocean. There I boarded an icebreaker, a so-called ship constructed by the gnomes. Several other people had booked passage for this voyage and were awaiting my arrival, including my comrades Tolan, Breen, and Solist. Boom, there's another name. Tolan. We know Tolan. Tolan's got some items named after him. Tolan's Longsword of the Glade. Tolan's armor, right? All that armor in Kunark that Veneral Sather and Trakanon have, named after this guy. So we also know he's a ranger, just like we know Solist is a wizard. It wasn't a fun trip. The ship's hammers were constantly clanking and banging. They didn't include that in the game. Those blasted gnomes were making silly pirate noises, and it was cold. It nearly drove me crazy. We finally made landing at a beachhead the gnomes constructed, but found little in the way of luxuries. The gnomes even managed to misplace the horrible rum that kept us warm during the voyage, and before you ask, I had nothing to do with that misplacement. That's a little lore here because, spoiler alert, this guy ends up being a rogue. After looking around the landing, the group of us decided to head west, beyond the area the gnomes had explored. We passed quite a few interesting sights, and a tower I really wanted to inspect, but Solist and Breen both said to avoid it, so we continued on. Okay, that's another interesting point. Even though the tower reeks of dark magic, as Breen told us, Solist didn't even want to go there, and he's the magic guy. But apparently this guy, the rogue, who I'll tell you who it is at the end of this letter, he did want to go there. But he's a rogue, maybe he's curious. It didn't say what Tolan wanted to do, so maybe Tolan wanted to go in the tower, maybe he wanted to avoid it. After crossing a bridge that was so high it made even me dizzy, our luck ran out. And we're going to see that bridge soon. A group of well-organized giants took us by surprise. Deciding discretion was called for, I managed to duck out of the battle when it was obvious we were losing. Several people, including Solist, managed to escape, while Breen went down fighting, buried under a pile of giants. No word about what happened to Tolan there. After the dust settled, I saw the giants carrying Breen off to the southwest and decided to follow them. So now we know that Breen... Oh, someone sent me a tell about my videos. Awesome. I'll respond to that in a minute. So now we know that Breen went to Kale against his will. He got carried there. Solist went the opposite direction. He went to where the Koldane were. This guy, who's writing this letter, wanted to go toward Kale. So it sounds like only Solist is the one that went toward the Koldane. After a few hours of sneaking along, I was startled by a voice behind me. Tolan! The clever ranger had escaped the giant ambush the same way I had, and was tracking the giants and me across the waste. Okay, so he's a ranger, he's tracking, he can hide, he can sneak, just like a rogue can, although a rogue can do it better. And that's how he managed to avoid the giants, but he was also following them as this guy was. We continued to follow the giants, so they're together now, and even eventually came to a great fortress city. So this is where Solist turned away. With luck and skill, the two of us managed to sneak inside the city. We tried to find Breen, but there was no way to know for sure where he had been taken. So now they're describing the city as being somewhat large, if it's so big that you can't even tell where this guy got taken. The chance of getting caught was high, since the place was crawling with giants. We eventually passed through the city itself and found ourselves on the edge of a huge forest. Here's our second reference to the Awakening Land. The giants were working hard to push the forest back, but according to Tolan, they weren't doing well. He said he felt great power in the woods, stronger even than the heart of Fedark. I didn't question his statement. I could feel the life here myself. Okay, what's interesting about that, when it said the giants were working hard, first of all, when you go out into the Awakening Lands, you see what he's talking about. The giants are trying to expand their city westward, or at least expand fortresses for the giants in the direction of essentially Skytrine, but just into the Awakening Land in general. Because right now, their fortresses mainly exist on the other side of Kale in the Eastern Waste, and in the Great Divide. The other interesting thing about what he says here, or what he doesn't say but you see as a player, is that it goes back to that whole discrepancy between the Kromrif and the Kromzek. If you look in the Awakening Lands, where these giants are building these forts, it's all Kromrif doing the work. It's almost like they are the slave labor that the Kromzek are the slave masters of. And you do see like one or two Kromzek, but they're called overseers or something like that, or work shift masters or something like that. So the Kromzek are directing the Kromrif to build out into Awakening Land. Again, the Kromrif, they seem to be getting the short end of the stick here in Kale. Now, he also alludes to the Plane of Growth because he says he felt a great power in the woods, stronger even than the heart of Fedark. This refers to Tunair. And we knew that we were getting two new planes with Velious. It ended up being Plane of Growth, Plane of Mischief. He's referring here to the Plane of Growth. At Tolan's urging, we left the giant city behind and traveled on through the forest. Tolan grew more and more excited, saying he felt we were nearing something amazing. Again, Tolan's a ranger. He might even worship Tunair. He probably does worship Tunair, in fact, if he's getting this excited about getting close to the Plane of Growth. Tolan's woods lore gave us no warning when a group of strange flying creatures suddenly appeared. I'm not sure who that refers to, but I think it's referring to the monkey things. It could be referring to those like Fey Drake things. Both are in the Waking Lands. Finding ourselves quickly captured, we were trussed, blindfolded, and gagged. We were carried to the heart of the forest where a gathering of beings awaited us. So now it sounds like they've got a similar fate to Breen. They would not speak to me, but they jabbered with Tolan for a long while in a strange language. Again, I was blindfolded and carried through the forest. After some time, I was put down and my bonds cut. I was at the edge of a clearing facing the giant city, so he's back at Kale. Tolan was there, unbound and smiling. He told me I should make my way back to the Iceclad Ocean. I wasn't welcome in this land, and to go any further west would be a bad idea. He's saying that because Tolan was a ranger who presumably follows Tuner, he was able to negotiate this rogue's release. But he doesn't want to go back with this ranger. Oh, who's this guy? Aruna. Heal her up too. Is it a her? I think it's a her, yeah. So Tolan is saying, hey, these are my people. I'm going to stay here. What we've stumbled upon is important to me as a ranger who follows Tuner. But you are a rogue. You don't belong here. They don't want you here. You're not welcome where I'm about to go, presumably the Plane of Growth. Go back. Trust me. I know what's on the other side of this forest. In the middle is the Plane of Growth. On the other side is something bad. You don't want to go that way. Trust me. And he probably knows because these Plane of Growth denizens told him about it. Okay. So he says dragons would kill me if I entered the shrine that they had built on the other side of the forest. That is, if I made it that far, since there was always the chance that the forest creatures would decide to have me for lunch. So he's reiterating, look, these forest creatures do not like you. They like me because I follow Tuner. They don't like you. When I asked Tolan what he was going to do, he said he would be staying there for a time as a guest. He was a grown man. I assume he knew his own business. Not wanting to overstay my welcome, I took Tolan's advice and said goodbye. I went back through the giant city, still no sign of Breen, across the wastes, and eventually back to the shores of the Iceclad Ocean, where I sit now. Now this is really interesting, this last little paragraph, listen to this. I'm going to head back out again soon to look for Breen, Solist, and the others. Don't know who the others are. We got a few names here, we didn't get all the names. Presumably, a rogue, a warrior, and a ranger, and a wizard didn't just travel alone. They probably had some sort of cleric or druid or shaman with them. But we didn't get those names. I wouldn't feel right abandoning them at this point, and besides, it could turn out to be profitable. Regards, Mrylokar. Okay, that's really important because we know Mrylokar. Just like we know Tolan and we know Solist, we know Mrylokar. Mrylokar has a ton of armor named after him, all the rogue armor, in fact. And he's got 2 daggers, although I think it's really just the same dagger, and a 2-hand blunt randomly in Kunark, named after him. And this is another lore point that's very interesting to me. When you fight Mrylokar and you kill him, you find a couple items on him that bear the names of these people that wrote these letters. You find Mrylokar's Dagger of Vengeance, Tolan's Longsword of the Glade, Solist's Earring of Insight, and every single item that Mrylokar has is named after some famous hero adventurer in the game. Okay, I'll just give you a small sample. We've got Garn's Rock of Smashing, Jalen's Katana, Siren's Boots of Insanity, Hobart's War Helmet, Brother Zave's Headband, Rowl's Metal Guards. I don't know who any of these people are, but I know that they're presumed to be heroes because this is implying that these same characters have been to Vishen's Peak. They've been to Sebelis. They've been to Karnor's Castle. They've been to the City of Mist, presumably. I guess in the case of Solist, they've been to Kern's Tower. And they've been to the Temple of Vishen, and they've fought Mrylokar. Now, here's my theory. It may not be that they actually fought and died to Mrylokar. It may be the case that they fought the same way that you find Mrylokar's breastplate on Trakanon, you find Solist's robe on Vishen's Peak, and you find Tolan's armor on Veneral Sathir. But that all happened before these letters were written when they went to Velious. So that means they didn't die. Just because you found their stuff on those high-end NPCs in Kunark doesn't mean that they died to them. Same could be true in Velious. Just because Mrylokar has all this stuff bearing their name doesn't mean that they all died to him. It could mean that they died to him, but it doesn't necessarily implicate that. It could very well be that Solist, Tolan, and Mrylokar all made it to Mrylokar somehow, and they all died fighting him. Or maybe they died somewhere else, like in Western Wastes or I don't know, Sky Shrine or whatever. And the minions of the dragons, like the wyverns and the worms and all that stuff, they found these items either on the dead bodies of a Solist or a Tolan or a Mrylokar, or just left behind by them. And they thought, ooh, let me bring this to our lord. Let me bring this to Jelinek or to Vulak. Because lore-wise, dragons sit on treasure. They didn't necessarily accumulate that treasure themselves. Nagafin has treasure chests in his domain, in Nagafin's lair. You find treasure chests in Vishen's Peak behind Faradar and a lot of the other dragons. It makes sense that these dragons just sit on this treasure. It doesn't necessarily mean that they themselves killed the original owners of those items. It just means that they have compiled it in their list of treasure. I don't necessarily think that Vulak fought and killed Hobart and Raul and Palladius and Akiris and Valtron. Maybe he did, but maybe he just accumulated their gear of travelers that went through Velious. So, I'll finish off with the closing letter here. It's pretty short, from Neriak. As you can tell by reading these transcripts, there is much more to Velious than we first imagined. The war among the dwarves, giants, and dragons suggests great opportunity for us, if we choose our allies carefully. If you have any further questions, you need only ask, and I shall endeavor to find answers for you. Your humble vassal, Ryaz Katarn, Master Coercer. Okay, so that's implying that this Dark Elf didn't actually... Because I don't know any items named after him. He just found these letters. And because he's saying transcripts, it makes me think that he did actually allow those letters to be delivered. They just made copies of them. So that lore gave you so much of a preview of Velious. It got me super excited, my 14-year-old self, super excited to explore this expansion. What's with this dragon bridge? What's with this weird tower in Iceclad Ocean that Breen talked about? What's with the City of the Giants? What's with the Coldane? Are they friendly? According to Solist, they are. What's with this mysterious forest, and why aren't the giants able to push through it? What's with this shrine built dedicated to dragons? Like, there's so much that was implied, and they even named specific figures like the Dane, Tormax. It's really interesting, and it just made me super excited back then, and it still makes me excited to read those and think, I'm about to explore all that. Okay, so now we're here. And I need to respond to this guy. Okay, we'll pick back up in a second. Alright, so I've got my new buffs here, Guard and Valor, and my goal is to find this spell. I'm going to give myself so. Thanks again to the person that gave me these. How many? 6 charges, alright. Okay, so first thing we see that's hostile, right there. Snowcougar. Blue, boom. And we see a few other gnomes. Should I try to fight this thing? I think I will. I did get a new spell, Force. Now this is mostly a stun. I'm excited about a lot of these spells. I even got something I've never done before, because I had so much money to spare. I got the Regents for the symbol spell here. I'll probably only cast that in groups, or if I'm soloing something that, like, I don't know. I want to go inside Tower of Frozen Shadow. There is, like, a place I would definitely use symbol. Let's see how I do against this Snowcougar, keeping in mind that I can't really run to any cards if I can't kill this thing. Okay. It's pretty fast, just like most animals in this game. But so far, this is not a completely original model. So the first enemy you see, it's original in the sense that it's white, but it's basically the same model as a puma that you would find, or a wild, or what do they call them, plains cats in the commons. So not super original. And it's hitting me for about what I would normally get hit with. My defense is going up, that's wonderful. That spell doesn't do nearly as much damage as Wrath, so I'm probably not going to use it very much. Now, one thing about both this expansion and Kunark that they have in common, in general, NPCs in those two expansions are considered, for their level, to be tougher than NPCs back on the old world. Antonica, Otis, Fedor. Alright, I'm going to have to root you, buddy. Oh, come on, don't swim away. You don't want to do that. Although my swim skill's pretty good. So let's just say that this Snowcougar is, I don't know, I'm just taking a guess. It's blue to me. Let's say it's level 30. It's considered that the average Velious mob and Kunark mob is probably a little bit tougher than a level 30 mob in... Ooh, the boat's here. And people actually ride the boat. That's fascinating to me. I guess it does take you pretty close to use commons. They're considered tougher than the average level 30 mob back in the old world. Now, what does that mean? How much tougher? I don't know. I mean, we're talking 10% more hit points, or they hit 10% harder, 15% more hit points, and they don't hit any harder. It kind of varies, and that's not true across the board. How was that XP, by the way? Not great, but that's to be expected. We're in an outdoor zone. A hill giant is, let's just say, level 36. That's tougher than your average level 36 NPC in Velious, I'm willing to bet. But in general, I think that is true, that you know, a level 30 Snow Cougar is probably tougher than a level 30 Knoll in South Karana. I see a player over there. Let's see, what's his deal? Jossus. 34 Ranger. Hey, fellow level 34. He's probably fear kiting these. Alright, I don't know where to get this spell. Sojin the Sleepless. Man, I can relate. I struggle with insomnia sometimes, especially when I'm sick. Alright, let's see if he's got my spell. No, I don't see any cleric spells. Oh, he does introduce us to something, though. He introduces us to Velium items. So this, you'll notice, 838. Let's see if he has the equivalent. He doesn't. Okay, let me find one that he does have the equivalent of. Velium Longsword. Compare that to a Fine Steel Longsword. Exact same stats, 628, except it's magic and it has a proc. That proc is garbage. It's 12 damage, cold based, which, you know, on this continent doesn't go super far, but it's worth noting because, and I think this is just something a player sold him. Do I have anything to sell? Oh yeah, let's see what this sells for. 5 copper. Jesus. Well, better than nothing. That was something that was interesting. It was really only useful in terms of, like, pets. I mean, maybe if you're naked and you have to fight back to your corpse, you could use some of that Velium weapons. Supple black coat. I think these are all things that were sold. But it was kind of cool. They basically just took fine steel weapons and gave it magic and a proc, which makes them better. Maybe this guy has my spell. He seems to have a bunch of spells. There it is! Oh, only 16 plat. I way over-prepared. I was worried it was going to be like 50. Level 34 cleric. Well, that's me. I'm a 34 cleric. I'll buy it. In fact, he might have some future spells. Call of Sky. That's a good spell, I've heard. Divine Purpose. It sounds cleric-y, but I can't use it. Fury of Air. Monster Summoning. That's a great spell. It looks like he might only have one cleric spell. Well, better than none. And that's the one I came here for. Man, I could have made this whole video. God, I've been recording for a long time already. I could have made this whole video just on finding this spell. But I can't do that because I need the level. Definitely going to drop that. So this is a self-only buff. I can't cast it on other players. It gives me... Well, let's see how much hit points it gives me. So I'm going from 876 to... and 702 to... Whoa, that's a lot. That's like 150? 200? Yeah, it's over 200. Wow. 876 to 1078. That's 202 hit points. And, here's a Snow Cougar. Okay, good. It didn't attack me. And armor class, I can't remember what my armor class was. I got distracted by that Cougar, but it went up as well. Okay, cool. There's also a quest that I want to do, but it's from one of those gnolls, so I'm not going to do it this video. I might start it this video, but I want to find a place to XP that's not just Snow Cougars. Maybe I can find some undead. We'll see. I'll come back when I find something. Okay, so something sort of exciting has happened here. So that's the island I was on, and I ran across these little icebergs over to here, the second island in Iceclad, and I ran into this guy, Midnight, who, he cons the same as the others. I figure he's kind of a rare named mob, obviously. He may not be that rare, because I do recall seeing him quite a bit on previous playthroughs, but damn, he hits harder than I thought he would. He might drop something that I need for one of these quests I'm trying to do here, so I figured I would just kill him. However, wow. He, well, let's see what I can do here, because he hits hard. Harder than I'm used to being hit. I may have bitten off more than I can chew here. Okay, that's not a good sign. He just resisted. At least he's missed me twice. Let's see if I can land a more impactful nuke here. Okay, 208, full damage. That did not do nearly as much. Okay, he's got a lot of health. I don't think I can do this. I think I bit off more than I could chew here. Oh, come on. All right. Yeah, this isn't happening. No way in hell is this going to work. Let me try to camp out.
Sorry, false alarm. No midnight fight yet. Hey, at least my evocation went up. Let's assume I can camp out and I should be safe. Hopefully root doesn't break right as I'm about to camp out. I had a couple times where I tried the room and it wouldn't land, so I don't think I can kill this guy. But that island up there, that's the same one that the Tower of Frozen Shadow is on, so maybe I can pop my head in there. No. Oh, thank God. Whew. Oh, thank God. Alright, we're coming to the end of our level 34 journey here, and I grouped up with this person named Niara. It's been an interesting little trip. I did the whole boat thing, I read all those letters. Mainly what I did after the whole Midnight disaster was I sat here on this island, which is the one that you saw me pull Midnight from. Went up the island and I soloed these things, Shadow Guardians and Snow Cougars. Those are pretty much the only two things that are on this island. There is the Tower of Frozen Shadow, which I did not. I have yet to go inside. And there's level 35. And yeah, 35 is going to be a hell level, but most of this level, 34, I basically just sat here and I soloed Cougars and Shadow Guardians. Shadow Guardians are not undead. I did not realize that. I thought maybe they might be, but they're not, because I see bones, but apparently that's not enough to make them undead. So it was incredibly inefficient, and this is post-commentary, by the way. This is me running around with Niara. It was incredibly inefficient because I could just nuke the Cougars and the Shadow Guardians to death. It wasn't hard, but the ZEM in this zone kind of sucks. It's an outdoor zone. Most Velious zones are pretty bad. The ZEM here was 83, which means I'm basically getting a 17% penalty for everything I kill. So that sucked, but I kind of just liked it. You know, I'm in this area by the beach. I had the little waves behind me. And then I did get to catch a Lotazal raid, which I did not get any footage of, but saw some people gathering for that, and then he spawned, and it was kind of cool. It's the area right behind those little ice pads. So yeah, I do not recommend. I really don't know. I guess maybe Rangers, Druids, and Necros can solo here, because the Cougars, you can use your animal spells on them. Otherwise, I wouldn't go anywhere near this zone for soloing. I haven't yet been to the last island where you can kill giants and the wolves. Actually, I take that back. I did run over to the island, grab one wolf. It wasn't on the giant faction, and I killed it. So I did that. This was just right at the end here that I did this with Niara. We basically did this thing, and this is a pretty good strategy, because she has a pretty decent two-hand blunt. We kept her in berserk mode, so that she could keep getting those crippling blows, which helped a lot. Like you see there, the crippling blow for 125 she had. But next level, I really want to go inside that tower right there. Tower of Frozen Shadow, lots of undead. I'm not super familiar with the zone. I know the first floor and the second floor pretty well. After that, it gets a little hazy, and I've never been to the top floor. So we'll do that next level. Hope you enjoyed reading through all that lore with me. I love the lore in this game, especially this expansion, and I thought it would be a great way to intro this expansion. So here we are. Welcome to Velious.